The girl is praying with her eyes closed. Suddenly the priest's hand is stroking the girl's leg back and forth. The girl realized she was being violated, but she didn't dare say anything. The story began a few days ago. The Sangmi family moved from the city to the countryside when their father's business failed. They arrived at their new home as promised, but what they saw was a ruin that was impossible to live in. The family had to settle for a night in a steam room. After a phone call, my father found out that his friend had lied to him. He'd taken the money he'd spent on the house to gamble. That was all his savings. He was cheated out of all his money. Even a place to live became a problem. Father was in a state of anxiety. The next morning, father went looking for a job, but after a long time, he couldn't find any. Luckily, he met a kind boss. Although the work was hard and the pay was low, but he could provide food and lodging. Father gladly accepted. When the family saw how small and shabby the place was, they were a little disappointed. Although the accommodation was a bit poor, but it's better than nothing. Sangmi said optimistically that as long as the family is together, it's fine. The father was ashamed to hear that. Then the family got busy. They cleaned and carried their belongings. When they're tired, they cook and eat. The family was happy and didn't complain. And then the priest, who was not interested in the family, saw them. The priest smiled evilly and seemed to be thinking of something. This priest is a very powerful man, and he's very good at fooling people. No one in the neighborhood doesn't know him. He can cure cancer patients who can't be cured in hospitals. He put his hand on the patient's abdomen. He slapped the patient's abdomen a few times with a silent incantation. Then he puts his hand on the patient's abdomen. After a few operations, there was only blood on the patient's abdomen but no wound. He told the devotees in a loud voice that what he was holding was cancer. When the devotees saw this, they were convinced of the priest, applauding and kneeling. They thought they had found their salvation. More and more people came to the priest for treatment. Every day, a drop of holy water is added to the tea they drink. This was the priest's way of controlling the believers to become his puppets. One day, the boss came to see his father and told him he'd been chosen by the priest. He said he would take the family to the church to pray, although the father was puzzled. But he did everything the boss told him to do. Then he took his family to the church. Once they met, the dignified priest told Sangmi that her soul was clear. Then he said a lot of empty words. Sangmi was a bit surprised. In order to gain their trust, the priest promised to help them find a house and pray for them. Then the most outrageous thing happened. In the name of praying, this so-called priest kept touching Sangmi's legs while the people closed their eyes. It was obvious that he had bad intentions towards Sangmi, but Sangmi didn't dare to say anything, because in the eyes of others, this is a normal prayer and she can't afford to be flippant. But it wasn't over yet. The priest, for his own plot, not only did he send someone to help them find a new home, but he also helped them move. The family was very happy to see their new spacious and bright home. Sangmi was the only one who felt uneasy. She remembered the priest's unusual words and behavior, and seeing the two apostles being so enthusiastic, Sangmi always felt something strange. But seeing her parents so happy, Sangmi couldn't say anything. Before leaving, the two apostles made some polite remarks. Then they said they needed help. Sangmi's father offers Sangmi and her brother to help in return for a favor. This was exactly what the apostles wanted, but this decision changed the fate of the family forever. Then they went out on the street to hand out flyers. Sangmi felt strange looking at the people in the church. After a while, his brother Sang Jin went to the restroom. As he was going out, he accidentally bumped into a student. Sang Jin didn't apologize and turned to leave. How could bully let him go? Looking at Sang Jin, who was being so coy, a group of people started bullying him. Afterwards, Sang Jin came out in disgrace and cowardly didn't say anything to Sangmi's concern. He only said he was fine. Sangmi looked at his brother's back and seemed to think of something. When she came back, Sangmi was still uneasy. She kept asking her brother what happened, but he still hid it. He told Sangmi that his parents are having a hard time, and he wants Sangmi not to say anything. Looking at her brother's pleading eyes, Sangmi gave in. Soon the siblings arrived at school, but the older brother's face was full of fear, because the bully who bullied him that day was in the same class as him. Before class was over, bully couldn't wait to humiliate Sang Jin with a little note. At lunchtime, bully found Sang Jin. He came up and stirred up his food. And that's not all. Then bully spit on Sang Jin's food, and forced him to eat it. Looked at Sang Jin, who did nothing. Bully pushed him to the ground. He poured the food all over him, then dragged him by his hair, and threatened him to eat the food on the floor. The cowardly Sang Jin could only do as he was told. At that moment, his sister appeared just in time. Bully was furious and turned around to look at Sangmi. Sangmi told Bully to apologize or call the police. Bully, however, arrogantly refuses to admit that he bullied Sang Jin. Sangmi is very surprised and disappointed. Bully went up to Sangmi and tried to molest her. Sangmi slapped Bully to the ground. At that moment, Sang Huan and Dong Chul come to the cafeteria. Sang Huan just saw Sangmi being bullied. He shouted to stop it. Then he rushed over and jumped up and kicked him. Bully took off his clothes and wanted to fight. The henchman saw Sang Huan's name and stopped the boss. He told him Sang Huan Huan was the mayor's son. Bolli knew he couldn't afford to offend him. He left with a stern message. After school, Sangmi waited for her brother on campus. Suddenly, she heard her classmates talking about her brother being taken to the rooftop. At that moment, Sang Jin was being punched by Bolli. Sang Jin, who has always been a coward, could only endure in silence. In his heart, he prayed for Bolli to end it quickly. On the other hand, Sangmi is in a hurry to save her brother. She accidentally bumped into Sang Huan and Dong Chul. Sangmi asks Sang Huan to help save her brother. Dong Chul turned around and tried to go upstairs without saying a word, but Sang Huan hesitated. He remembered his father's advice. Dad is running for mayor soon. He told Sang Huan not to get into trouble, so Sang Huan only told Sangmi to call the police. He ignored her pleas for help. When Sangmi ran to the rooftop, Bolli was forcing her brother to take off his pants. Looking at her brother's bruised and swollen face, Sangmi could only beg them to let her brother go, in order for her brother not to be bullied. Sangmi was powerless to resist. Bolli reached out to unbutton Sangmi's shirt. At that moment, a flower pot hit him. It was Dong Chul who came. Bolli is still talking tough as usual. Dong Chul didn't say anything. He put down his bag and picked up a stick. Then he rushed towards the gangsters. While the crowd was fighting, Sang Jin climbed up to the edge of the roof with his heart in his mouth. Looking at his sister's pleading eyes, the brother blamed himself even more. It was all because of his own cowardice. He took one last look at the sky, and then he was completely relieved. My sister fell to the ground. The scene in front of her was devastating. The police soon arrived and arrested Bolli and Dong Chul. The cowardly Sang Jin was freed, but the pain he brought to his family was endless. Mom and dad felt like they lost their souls when they heard that their child was gone. They couldn't believe their ears. They stumbled to the hospital. Mom and dad looked at the ward and cried their eyes out. In the middle of the night, Mom couldn't accept her son's death. Suddenly she saw her son. She wanted to hug him. She followed him to the rooftop. At that moment, Sangmi and her father couldn't find her mom. When they saw someone going to the rooftop, they hurriedly followed her. They watched their mom walk forward, crumbling into the air. In a moment of crisis, dad came forward and pulled her down. Luckily, there was no danger. That day, Sang Huan came to see Sangmi. He came to apologize for not helping her last time, but Sangmi didn't appreciate it. She was disappointed in Sang Huan. Dong Chul, who was locked up in the detention center, blamed himself for not being able to save Sang Jin. The bullies who were arrested with him were soon released by their powerful parents. Dong Chul was released due to lack of evidence, but he was expelled from school because he had no power. When Sang Huan heard about this, he was about to go see Dong Chul. Dong Chul entered the classroom. The teacher saw Dong Chul in the classroom. He told him to leave in front of the whole class. Sang Huan fought for him. Dong Chul just picked up his bag and left. Sang Huan chased after him and said, "You should at least fight back or demonstrate." And Dong Chul calmly said that he has no power and that anything he says is just nonsense. On the street at night, Dong Chul overheard the laughing and joking bullies without any repentance. He blamed himself for not saving Sang Jin. Anger welled up in him and he quietly followed them. When his friend Wani saw it, he felt bad. He called his classmates to look for Dong Chul. At that moment, Dong Chul was punching Bolli again and again. Bolli quickly conceded that he would turn himself in. He even pretended to feel guilty. After Dong Chul let go of him, Bolli picked up an umbrella and attacked from behind. He stuck the tip of the umbrella into Dong Chul's chest. Dong Chul couldn't move because of the pain. Luckily, Sang Huan arrived in time to save Dong Chul. When Sang Huan turned to take Dong Chul away, Bolli was not satisfied. He attacked Dong Chul from behind again. Both of them fell down the steep slope together. Dong Chul was fine. Bolli was not so lucky. He landed hard on the rocks. Bui's life was saved after treatment, but he suffered a serious spinal injury that may prevent him from walking for the rest of his life. That's a price to pay. On the other hand, the mayor, who learned that his son had been in trouble again, was also very upset. He's got an election coming up, and this is what happens. If it's exposed, he'll probably lose the election. After weighing the pros and cons, he was determined to make Dong Chul take full responsibility. With a lot of inducements, he bribed the police officer in charge of the case to deny his son's knowledge of the case, and won't allow his son to testify for Dong Chul. When Sang Huan came to question his father, the father said he would get him out of jail if he was elected. For now, Sang Huan cannot testify for his own promotion. His best friend, who doesn't know anything about this, is comforting Dong Chul. Sang Huan is an eyewitness, and will be fine as long as he testifies. But on the day of the trial, Sang Huan didn't show up. On the other hand, the father, who had just finished the funeral, found out that the bullies who killed his son were acquitted because their parents were powerful. Since the law can't punish them, he has to do it himself. So he angrily took a hammer to avenge his son's death, but he was seriously injured by those men. Sang Huan struggled with the decision to testify for Dong Chul. On his way to the court, he found Sang Mi's father with his face covered in blood. He took him to the hospital and was delayed. Dong Chul was sentenced for not having anyone to testify. Before getting into the car, Dong Chul turned back in disappointment. Sang Huan apologized to Dong Chul with a broken heart. Dong Chul was unusually calm. That day, Sang Mi couldn't reach Dong Chul. After some inquiries, Sang Huan told him that Dong Chul was in jail. Dong Chul was being bullied by a group of inmates. He didn't fight back but suffered in silence. But when he heard that he was being paid to be beaten up, Dong Chul suddenly exploded. Soon after, Sang Huan's father was elected mayor for 3 terms. As soon as Sang Huan entered the classroom, he received warm congratulations from his classmates, but he accidentally looked at Dong Chul's seat. On the other hand, Sang Jin's death has left his mother devastated. The father is saddened by the memory of his son's miserable life and his own incompetence. Then the apostle's sudden visit breaks his meditation. Sudden warmth is often the most heartwarming. After the apostle's brainwashing, the father was convinced. Sangmi happened to see this scene, but the father was already brainwashed. Even the cobwebs in front of him are in the shape of faith. This makes him even more convinced that everything that has happened to him lately has been guided by the gods. Sangmi came home to see his mother dressed up, completely out of his mind. His father decided to join the priests' organization. Sangmi cried and pleaded with her father not to go, but her father was already obsessed. He was convinced by the church. Although Sangmi was extremely reluctant, Sangmi is helpless when she sees her father suddenly kneeling down. Her mother is also overwhelmed by the grief of losing Sang Jin. Sangmi's defense is completely broken. For the sake of the family, Sangmi can only follow her parents to the church. Once again, he came to the church, a fearful place. Because of this decision, Sangmi began a nightmarish life. 3 years have passed. Sang Hwan went to college in Seoul. At the end of class, Sang Hwan was told that he had to attend a party organized by a senior. Even though Sang Hwan didn't want to attend such an event, but he was persuaded by his classmates to agree reluctantly. At the lively party, a boy who is not good at drinking was forced to drink by the senior. This scene reminds Sang Hwan of the time bully forced Sang Jin to drink 3 years ago. Then he remembered the time when Sangmi asked for help, when he refused mercilessly and when Sang Jin died. This moment awakened Sang Hwan's long dormant heart. He stopped this forced behavior. Sang Hwan picked up his bag and wanted to leave. How could he let Sang Hwan go after losing face? Sang Hwan couldn't stand it any longer. He grabbed a drink from the table and drank it. Then he fought with the others. That day, Sang Hwan was talking to her mother in her hospital room. Father and his secretary came in. Without saying a word, the secretary helped his mom with a massage. Sang Hwan was disgusted over Sang Hwan's strong objections. Father could only take it upon himself to massage his wife up. Sang Hwan mentioned what his father had promised him about Dong Chul. He says he can't face meeting Dong Chul anymore. Father explains that because Sang Jin is dead, it wasn't easy to get him out. He said he'd go see the director again to talk about it. Sang Hwan interrupted and said that today is the day Dong Chul will be released from prison. He thinks it's all a lie from his father. Today is Dong Chul's release day. Seeing his fellow inmates' families welcoming him, Dong Chul felt very sad. Looking at the sky outside, Dong Chul walks alone in a daze. When he got home, Dong Chul put fried noodles in front of his grandma's grave, which she never wanted to eat. Images of the two of them living together during his grandmother's lifetime came to his mind. Dong Chul choked up and ate the noodles. On that day, Young Koo, a boy from the church, captured Apostle Won Tae attacking a female apostle on his cell phone. Suddenly, the female apostle came out of the cabin. Then Won Tae came after her with his pants down. He stares at Young Koo with a fierce look. Young Koo is a retard. He didn't realize the seriousness of the situation. Then Won Tae grabbed him by the hair and took him to the back of the cabin and beat him up. Young Koo's screams for help were heard all over the mountain. Sangmi followed the sound and saw Young Koo, who had been beaten to the point of peeing. Sangmi was shocked by the scene in front of him, thinking of his brother who was bullied in the past. Sangmi threatened Won Tae that she would call the police if she bullied Young Koo again. Won Tae didn't care. He said that Sangmi misunderstood him. He's teaching Young Koo how to behave. Then Sangmi took Young Koo back to his place. Sangmi was shocked to see his scars. She pleaded with the people to take Young Koo to the hospital, but no one paid any attention to Sangmi. The apostas said it would be fine if she drank the water of life. Sangmi knew in her heart that this was just a way for the church to control people. She asked her father for help, but her obsessed father said it was useless to go to the hospital. Sangmi was devastated. She accused her father of being hopeless. He had to bring her and her mom here in the first place. Mom's condition hasn't improved in the past 3 years. The father slapped Sangmi in anger. In his opinion, his daughter's words were a great disrespect to the church. Sangmi looked at these people in despair, until the hypocritical priest appeared. He hypocritically agreed with Sangmi. Young Koo was then taken to the hospital. But within a day, Won Tae came to the hospital to take Young Koo back. On the way back, when no one was there, Young Koo was scared and told him that he was threatened. He showed Sangmi the video he took. Sangmi was shocked when she saw the video. While she was in a daze, Won Tae stood outside the car window with an evil smile. The eerie look scared her. On the way home, Sangmi realized that the route was not a church. She sensed something bad and told Young Koo to hold on to the handlebars. Then she picked up a tool from the car and stabbed the driver. The car went out of control and rolled down the hill. I don't know how long it took for Sangmi to wake up first. She rushed to wake up Young Koo, not caring about her injuries, and rushed to pull him to run away. But Young Koo lost his strength before he got very far. After running for some time, when Sangmi turned around to call Young Koo, he saw Won Tae grabbing Young Koo. Sangmi also gave up running. Won Tae kicked Sangmi directly. Sangmi fell to the ground in pain. When he heard that Won Tae was going to finish off Young Koo, Sangmi yelled at him to run, but due to the distance, Young Koo couldn't hear him clearly. He walked toward Sangmi in fear. At that moment, the sound of a train whistle in the distance is getting closer and closer. Sangmi's desperate shouts didn't dissuade Young Koo. Soon the train whizzed by. The only thing left behind was Young Koo's shoe. Sangmi was devastated by the sight. Back at the church, Sangmi couldn't help but cry when she saw her father. She wanted to tell her father about Young Koo. Before she could say anything, her father yelled at her. He accused her of being possessed by the devil and doing such evil things. Sangmi shuddered at the sight of her strange father. Then the priest appeared. The father was so scared that he knelt down and apologized. Sangmi's despair at her father's insistence was palpable. Sangmi was surprised when her father told her that she had been given special permission to leave the church and live outside. And that's exactly what the priest wanted. No one knows what he had in mind. Sangmi wanted to take her mother with her. She refused to go. She said she wanted to live with her brother in heaven. She sang a song of salvation. Father sang along with her. Sangmi was shocked and helpless to see her parents like this. On the way out, Sangmi excused herself to use the restroom. She escaped from the apostle's surveillance and ran away. She stopped a passing police car. When the police car returned to the police station, Sangmi was just getting over it, but the next moment she saw her father and the church. Sangmi's heart went cold. She begged the police to help her. They were the ones who killed Yongku, but the police believed the apostle's words. They thought Sangmi was crazy, but no matter how Sangmi tried to explain, no one believed her. The father was very upset by his daughter's behavior. He thought she was possessed by the devil. Then the father kept slapping Sangmi's head. He was chanting to get rid of his daughter's demon. This bizarre scene scared the police. Poor Sangmi fainted because of her superstitious father. When Sangmi woke up again, she found herself lying in the arms of the apostle. What's even more outrageous is that her father even asked her if she felt better after praying. Sangmi said fiercely that they were all devils. Looking at the seemingly crazy behavior of these people in the car, it's clear that these people are beyond help. The van made a sharp turn and hit the motorcycle, and it was Sang Huan and his 3 men who hit it. Sang Huan is furious and goes up to the van. Wen Tae got out of the van and apologized. Sang Huan inadvertently looked inside the car. He saw Sangmi with a blank stare. Sang Huan instantly realized. The 3 of them went to a quiet corner to discuss the rescue operation, so they followed the van. At an intersection, they saw each other again. Sangmi's eyes were filled with hope. Sang Huan and the 3 of them continued to chase and wait for an opportunity. While in the van, they were all meditating. No one paid attention to Sangmi. While the car was waiting for the traffic light, Sangmi felt her chance had come. She opened the car door fearfully and was about to get out of the car to escape when her father pulled her back. That's how Sangmi lost her chance to escape. She was then taken to a new home by the priest. Sangmi was curled up in a corner, staring blankly. Suddenly, there was a noise at the door. It turned out that her father had locked the door for fear of her escaping again. He nailed the door shut with a wooden plank. With a grimace on his face, he mouthed evil words. Her father's strange behavior scared Sangmi completely. It wasn't long before the 3 men who had been following her came here. They decided to go in and find out what was going on. After they climbed over the wall, Jang Hoon accidentally stepped on a basin. The noise attracted the attention of Sangmi's father. The 3 of them hid in fear. Sangmi's father came all the way here but didn't find anything. Luckily, the 3 of them were able to hide on the roof. Just as they were about to leave, Jang Hoon realized that his cell phone was missing. Sang Huan told them to stay put and help Jang Hoon look for his cell phone. The cell phone was quickly found. When he looks up, he sees Sangmi in the room. Sang Huan wanted to confirm that Sangmi had been kidnapped. After some discussion, they decided to call the police to report a domestic violence. The police received the call and arrived at Sangmi's house to inquire about the situation. The 3 of them hid in a corner and videotaped the incident, but they didn't realize that after Sangmi's father's performance, the police officer thought it was a false alarm and left. The trio's plan failed again. In order to prevent his daughter from escaping, the father locked the door and put a nail on it. Then he put up his faith. Inside the room, Sangmi was already scared out of her wits. 3 years ago, Sangmi's father was compelled by a priest to bring the family to an evil church, and so began Sangmi's nightmarish life. Over the past 3 years, Sangmi has run away countless times. He was caught and escaped again, until the priest threatened her mother. She pretended to give in, but looking at her mother, who was crazy all day long, Sangmi vowed to escape, but the nightmare had just begun. That day, the priest's ambitions were finally revealed. They wanted to turn Sangmi into a spirit mother. The so-called spiritual mother is sacrificed to the priest. This is unthinkable. Sangmi was shocked and called them crazy. She tried to ask her father for help, but he persuaded Sangmi to agree. Sangmi was desperate to face her father. She smashed the fish tank and resisted with the glass. She would rather die than face such humiliation. While Sangmi was fighting to the death, they threatened her mother again. The priest told Sangmi that you can die, but your mother will be punished by God for your stupidity. Sangmi had no choice but to throw away the glass in her hand. Sangmi was even more frightened when her own mother urged her to serve the priest. She believed that only a priest could bless her family. Sangmi looked at this sinister man in front of her with despair. In her mind, she is thinking of how to expose this evil organization. Meanwhile, after Sang Huan's unsuccessful rescue yesterday, Sang Huan decided to come to Dong Chul for help, but Dong Chul doesn't want to forgive Sang Huan. Then the 2 of them vented their bitterness until they had no strength left. Dong Chul got up and was about to leave. Sang Huan mentioned Sangmi. Sangmi was in danger. On that day, the priest who was praying saw Sangmi arrive. He called on the congregation to applaud Sangmi. Sangmi didn't appreciate this treatment. She exposed the priest's plot in public. She shouted at the congregation, "The so-called salvation is to spend your family's money on prayers and work here like a puppet." The priest was furious at Sangmi's provocation. He grabbed Sangmi by the hair and said to the congregation that Sangmi had been possessed by the devil. He wanted to pray for Sangmi. The congregation believed the priest's words. The female apostle at the side remembered her daughter, who had also resisted. There was a hint of sadness on her face. Then Sangmi was pressed to the ground. The priest's hand grabbed the top of her head. He was saying something. The three of them acted as if they were trying to drive out the devil. They slapped Sangmi's body hard. Sangmi couldn't resist but let them do whatever they wanted. She stared blankly ahead with a hint of hatred in the corner of her eye. In order to save her mom, she was willing to endure such torture. However, to Sangmi's despair, her paralyzed father didn't do anything when he saw her being treated like this. On the other hand, the female apostle is a little bit saddened by this. At that moment, her mother, who had always been crazy, came running over. She pushed Won Tae away and begged them not to beat her daughter. Seeing this scene, the priest shouted that the demon that possessed Sangmi had been transferred to Sangmi's mom. Believing in the truth, the father slapped his wife without saying a word. Sangmi cried and jumped on her mom, but she could do nothing but cry together. Meanwhile, the two brothers discussed how to save Sangmi. Sang Hwan tried to call the police, but even the police can't do anything about a church with no evidence. Sang Hwan tried to ask his father, the mayor, for help, but Dong Chul didn't trust the police. He decided to sneak into the church and rescue Sangmi on his own. Sang Hwan was shocked to hear his crazy idea. If he's not careful, Dong Chul will get himself killed. Dong Chul said that one of us must go in and save Sangmi, so Dong Chul disguised himself and quickly penetrated the enemy. But just as he arrived, he learned some devastating news. The priest was planning to marry Sangmi. In the hall, Sangmi was being cheered and applauded by the crowd as a spiritual mother. Dong Chul, lurking in the crowd, stares at this shamelessness. As Sangmi walks towards the crowd, she spots Dong Chul. Her eyes were stunned. Dong Chul clenched his fists and was about to charge at him, but the girl beside him held him back. The girl identified herself. Her name is Xiao Lin. She's a reporter here on an undercover mission. It didn't take long. Sangmi, who realized what was going on, came to ask Xiao Lin about her identity. Xiao Lin denied it. She wasn't sure if Sangmi could be trusted. Sangmi scolded Xiao Lin. Everyone here is obsessed. Do you believe in salvation? You know everything and you're pretending to be confused. Seeing that Xiao Lin still doesn't believe in herself, Sangmi said that she was just like her, observing everything around her. Sangmi asked Xiao Lin to reveal her identity. Seeing Xiao Lin admitting her identity, Sangmi cried with joy and said she would destroy this place. Xiao Lin promised to help her as much as he could. At that moment, there were voices from the church outside the door. Xiao Lin immediately pretended to pray to Sangmi to get away. Sang Hwan was not idle either. When he came to his father for help, the scene in front of him was unbelievable. Father was chatting with the priest. The priest slowly turned his head and looked at the surprised Sang Hwan. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised and his eyebrows were provocative. Sang Hwan bluntly called the priest a liar, and the father, as if brainwashed, claimed that the priest was a good man. Not only did he help the Sangmi family, he even took care of Sangmi, who was mentally ill. Sang Hwan instantly realized that there was some kind of collusion between them. After a big fight, he left in a rage. At night, Sang Hwan quietly went to the church. He wanted to collect evidence of the crime. Because of his unfamiliarity with his surroundings, he wandered into the priest's prayer room. Watching the priest's teeth and claws praying and bizarre behavior, Sang Hwan took out his cell phone and recorded it. The priest was in the midst of his own self-promotion. Sang Hwan's cell phone suddenly vibrated. The priest realized something was wrong. His expression immediately became serious. He went up to check but found nothing. After Sang Hwan slipped away, he accidentally ran into Sangmi's mom. Sangmi's mom treated Sang Hwan as her son and dragged him away. By chance, Sangmi came to see her mom. She was surprised that Sang Hwan was here. Realizing that it's dangerous here, Sangmi panics and tells Sang Hwan to leave. But Sang Hwan wants to take Sangmi with him. But Sangmi said it's not the right time yet. While Sang Hwan was still insisting, the apostle's voice came from outside the door. Sang Hwan had no choice but to leave. When he got home, Sang Hwan showed them the video. He apologized and said that the police and his father were in bed with the priest. He can only rely on himself now. He asked Jang Hoon to broadcast the video live and use public opinion to draw attention to the situation. Then they discussed the rescue plan together. They drew a map of the church. By now, the priest can't wait to marry Sangmi. He asked Sangmi to the church. Sangmi asked why he chose her. He knew he didn't stay here by choice. The priest told her he had met a college student with a clear soul, but at that time, he was too eager and forced the college student to jump off a building. So when the priest saw Sangmi, he decided that this time he must succeed. Then he pressed Sangmi to the ground and reached for her skirt. Sangmi begged for mercy. She looked at the priest with sincere eyes and promised not to run away again. She asked the priest to give her some time. The priest, who wanted to possess Sangmi, agreed after a moment's hesitation. Then Sangmi returned to her room in a daze. She carefully took out her cell phone, listening to the content of the recording. She was still scared inside. On the other hand, Sangmi's mom was in better spirits under Xiao Lin's care. Xiao Lin whispered to her that she should never take the medicine given by the apostle. Staying awake is the only way to save Sangmi. Before she could say anything, apostle came in with the medicine. Then he gave her the medicine. Mom also cooperated. The apostle watched her take the medicine and then left without worry. After they left, Sangmi's mom took the medicine out of her mouth. When they came out, Xiao Lin asked the apostle for a day off off on the pretext that it was Mom's birthday. The apostle said yes, but he secretly followed Xiao Lin. Xiao Lin met with the reporter and learned that those pills can't be prescribed without a doctor's approval. Taking them every day can turn a normal person into a fool. Senior suggested Xiao Lin to leave the church and let the police intervene. Xiao Lin felt that the evidence wasn't enough for her to stay in the church. However, it was this decision that put her in danger. The next day, the apostle asked Xiao Lin what she used to do. Xiao Lin said she was going to get her master's degree. Then she met the church and found her way. The apostle didn't say anything and let Xiao Lin go. But thinking back to last night, when Xiao Lin came out followed by a man in a newspaper's car, she was still skeptical. Not long after, the three of them met at the back of the hill to discuss the next plan. Dong Chul took out Sang Mi's medical records. Sang Mi's condition was fictionalized on it. Dong Chul had just sneaked in while the doctor was out and found this medical record. Xiao Lin thinks the church is using fake patients to get over-the-counter drugs, to get more government subsidies. Xiao Lin decided to expose the story and get the public's attention, so the police won't dare to play dumb anymore. Xiao Lin was about to get into her car and leave when the apostle sent someone to force her back. The apostle exposed Xiao Lin's identity as a reporter on the spot. Seeing that Xiao Lin was still arguing, she ordered them to press Xiao Lin's head into the washing machine. She kept asking her who her accomplices were. Xiao Lin said nothing, so Xiao Lin was locked up. She was force-fed drugs. The fake medical records that were to be exposed were also returned to the priest. Xiao Lin was tied up. She cried out desperately, but no one could hear her. The apostle quietly approached. Looking at the helpless Xiao Lin, she skillfully pulled out a syringe. Xiao Lin shook her head in despair. At that moment, Dong Chul burst in. The apostle looks at Dong Chul with suspicion and realizes that something is wrong. She stuck the needle into Dong Chul, but she was no match for Dong Chul. Instead, Dong Chul stabbed her hard. He fainted at the next moment. Dong Chul successfully rescued Xiao Lin. He told her the way out. There is someone to meet her. Then Dong Chul immediately contacted Sang Huan. Sang Huan went to the other side. As soon as he got the news, Xiao Lin is desperately trying to escape. He came to the place Dong Chul had promised. He saw a car coming from afar. Xiao Lin thought it was a street person and desperately waved to stop the car. Just when she thought she was saved, the apostle Wan Tae came out of the car. Xiao Lin was shocked and turned to run, but Wan Tae pulled her by the hair and dragged her to the river, and then pressed Xiao Lin's head into the water until Xiao Lin stopped struggling, then let go of his hand. When Sang Huan came over, there was no one here. Seeing the situation, Sang Huan texted Dong Chul. When Dong Chul arrived, only one of Xiao Lin's shoes was left. The next day, Sang Mi passed by Xiao Lin's room. Sang Mi saw two apostles cleaning up. Sang Mi knew very well that they would only clean like this if someone was dead. Everything pointed to Xiao Lin's murder. One more day will bring more danger. She has to act fast. Dong Chul told Sang Huan about Wan Tae's whereabouts. Sang Huan and the three of them ambushed here in advance. When Wan Tae got out of the car, Sang Huan intercepted him. He asked him if he killed Xiao Lin. Wan Tae denied it. Sang Huan was prepared for this. He pretended to say that there was an eyewitness and the evidence was in his cell phone. Wan Tae believed it and pressed Sang Huan against the wall. He said with a disdainful face that he even dared to kill a reporter. Don't think I won't dare to kill you just because you're the mayor's son? Seeing Wan Tae's confession, he was hiding in the shadows and came forward. The police also came to the scene. Wan Tae was still trying to defend himself to the police, but Sang Huan played the recording. With the evidence, he was forced to surrender. On the other hand, Dong Chul asked Sang Mi to report his identity, so that he can be locked up in the church's secret place to find evidence of their crimes. On the other side, the priest, in order to compel people, he set fire to the book in his hand. Looking at the burning book, the crowd was in an uproar. The priest looked pleased with himself. His real purpose was to show them his hand, which was unharmed. The crowd was shocked and amazed. They worshipped the priest even more, and the sober apostle began to suspect the priest. She snuck into the priest's room. When she saw the unused fire retardant, it dawned on her. That's why the priest's hand wasn't hurt. At that moment, her faith collapsed. Dong Chul also started his plan. After receiving Sang Huan's notification, he erased all the data from his cell phone and hid it before going out to the restroom, but he was hit in the head right after he went out. It was the priest and his men. Then Sang Mi pointed out where Dong Chul hid the cell phone. Sang Mi gained the priest's trust, and Dong Chul, who was knocked out, was successfully detained with the imprisoned worshippers. Dong Chul kept calling out to the dying people. Suddenly a familiar coughing sound caught Dong Chul's attention. He went over and was shocked. It was his father, who used to be drunk and insulted him all the time. Seeing his father's frightened face due to the constant beatings, then he remembered that he didn't show up when his grandmother died, so he was locked up here. Dong Chul's anger burned even more intensely. His anger towards his father had vanished. Soon Sang Huan tracked them through the location. He soon came to the place where they were being held. Sang Huan shouted and searched for Dong Chul. When he heard Sang Huan's call, Dong Chul immediately got up and responded. Sang Huan opened the cell door and finally saved Dong Chul and the other detainees. On the other hand, the apostle found the medicine that Sang Mi's mom had hidden. Knowing that she had come to her senses, Sang Mi's mom pleaded with the apostle to spare the family in a motherly tone. The apostle hesitated for a long time but agreed. Then she told the priest that she was going to marry Sang Mi soon. Hearing this news, Sang Mi's mother rushed over there. By now, The priest was ready to marry Sangmi. Sangmi took the opportunity to ask the priest about all his sins. At this moment, the priest's true nature was revealed. When Sangmi refused, he slapped Sangmi directly. Then he undressed his clothes and tried to have sex. Sang Huan arrived just in time. He punched the priest and saved Sangmi. When Sangmi came out, she ran into her mom. Mother and daughter hugged each other tightly and cried. They greeted each other. They were about to leave. The priest rushed out from behind and abducted Sangmi with a knife. When the priest escorted Sangmi to the church, he saw the apostles pouring gasoline in the hall. The priest looked puzzled. The apostle said she wanted to burn all the evils in the place. Panicked, the priest rushes up and tries to grab the lighter from the apostle's hand. Sangmi took out a hidden tranquilizer and stabbed the priest. He instantly went limp and couldn't move. Sangmi, who had lost his mind, tried to light the lighter and destroy the priest himself. Fortunately, Sang Huan came in and stopped her. Trying to get up and struggle, the priest inadvertently touched the candle and ignited the gasoline. The fire soon spread all over his body. The priest rolled on the floor in agony. Sang Huan then dragged Sangmi away quickly. What's even more ironic is that while the fire was burning, the crucifix fell down and hit the priest. It's finally over. Sangmi was finally free. Soon after, Sangmi's mother was persuaded by Sangmi to accept her son's departure. She was determined to start a new life, and the four brothers are still fighting, though the experience was harsh on them, but the bond of brotherhood has grown stronger. Sangmi reappears at the end with a new look. She's graceful and confident. This is the end of the movie. If you like it, please like and follow the channel.